everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is the sequel to the 1987 movie, I think, Beetlejuice. It takes place, in the roughly 30 years later, something like that, 35 years later. Beetlejuice is still underground, and Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter accidentally opens a portal to the afterworld or the afterlife. As far as what I liked about this movie, overall, I thought the cast was great. I really enjoyed Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, of course. He's the best part of the movie, and he's in fine form. Pretty much every scene he's in this movie, to me, was pretty funny. It worked for me, and I really liked all of that. Winona Ryder is back as Lydia. She's great as well. Catherine O'Hara, also a big standout for me. She's funny in every scene she's in, pretty much. She's funny in subtle ways. She's funny in just over the top, loud, yelling, bombastic kind of ways. She's really great. I really liked her in this movie a lot. Jenna Ortega is great as well. I like her. I'm a big fan of her. Justin Theroux as Rory, I thought was good as well. I liked Monica Bellucci as Dolores Laverge. And Willem Dafoe as Wolf Jackson is also a standout for me. Just a fun character. I think I like Willem Dafoe, but I also like that type of noir detective kind of character. Was fun. He looked cool. He had a cool look. And also Danny DeVito shows up in a quick scene as like a janitor who just gets kind of murdered very quickly. But still, it's always fun. I like to see Danny DeVito. I really like the cinematography in this. It was by Harris Zambarklos. He works with Kenneth Branagh a lot. So he did Thor, Murder on the Orient Express, and Death on the Nile, and all those. He also did Meg 2. Music was by Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman also works with Tim Burton a lot. He did Batman. He did Beetlejuice, a lot of the Tim Burton movies. He also did the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, Good Will Hunting, Men in Black, 50 Shades of Grey. He did the theme song for The Simpsons, and he was in a band called Oingo Boingo back in the 80s. They had a couple songs. Weird Science is probably the biggest hit. I also liked the soundtrack in this. We had a lot of cool songs in this. Of course, we got Deo again from the original movie, although this time was sort of a kids choir version of it at their father's funeral, so that was fun. I also liked Margaritaville by Jimmy Buffett's a good song. Tragedy by the Bee Gees is a fun one. We got Cry Cry by Mazzy Star. Where's the Man by Scott Weiland. Right Here Waiting by Richard Marx. Sigur Rós had a song in there as well, and the Soul Train theme. So all good stuff, all good songs. I enjoyed that. Really good set design on this. I think Tim Burton, is always known for having these really interesting, kind of crazy, off-kilter, kind of wacky sets and everything. And Beetlejuice was, I guess, probably the first movie where he really did that. A little bit in Pee-wee's Playhouse or Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but really liked it. I really liked that it was all practical as far as I can tell, and it looked cool, and it was that very, trademark sort of Tim Burton look. I really like the costume design as well. There's some cool costumes in here. All the dresses that are worn, especially by Astrid, by Jenna Ortega's character. She has like a cool dress. It's sort of torn in the front. I like the look of that, and also the dress she wears is sort of her Marie Curie Halloween costume. A lot of cool costumes in this. Catherine O'Hara has some cool dresses as well. I really like the stop motion animation. There's a couple scenes. All the sandworm is stop motion animation like it was in the original. They also do a sequence with Lydia's dad and showing how he died. That stop motion. I like stop motion. It's always fun to see. And I like that there's mostly practical effects. There's still some, visual effects and digital effects, but they used a lot of practical effects in this. It seemed like as much as they could. And I appreciate that because, of course, the first movie used almost entirely all practical effects because CGI wasn't really a thing back then. Probably my favorite thing of the whole movie, though, is Baby Beetlejuice. I thought Baby Beetlejuice was just hilarious. It's so creepy and weird, and it's kind of that body horror type thing that I really enjoy. But yeah, him like coming out the first time, and he's just so hideous and disgusting and gross looking. But then that second scene with him where he like pops out and everything, and then they do the fake out where she wakes up and Beetlejuice like, oh man, I just had the craziest dream. Loved it. Thought it was great. I love Baby Beetlejuice. If they make those as dolls, I would buy one right now. I love them. I think they're great. And I think a lot of the comedy worked for me. There's a lot of funny jokes. Like that, like I said, that scene was very funny, but I also like when Delia realizes that she's dead, and then Astrid says, well, your paintings will go up in value now. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's nice. I sort of appreciate that. Was really funny. There's a couple other things that got me to laugh out loud. So good stuff. I think overall, I liked the movie. It was fun. As far as what I disliked about the movie, the beginning, I was a little bored, I will say, in the beginning, until we finally get to Beetlejuice. And I didn't dislike the characters or anything. It was just a little, and some of the jokes, especially at the beginning, did not work for me. Maybe it was just me getting used to sort of the style of humor and stuff. But there was definitely a couple of jokes that fell flat for me. All the stuff with Jeffrey Jones, I understand why they didn't put him in there. Jeffrey Jones was convicted of, I believe, taking pictures of an underage child and basically pedophilia in general. And so I understand why they didn't put him in this, but they still like featured his character pretty prominently. And I sort of wish they would have just not done that. Just maybe he said, oh, he died and just not really dealt with it as much. Maybe they could have done a quick scene at the end where they show his body has been ripped or whatever. But that's it. Yeah, the fact that they featured him so prominently and like had his picture in there and all that stuff, kind of just I don't want to be reminded of that guy, you know. And all the stuff with Monica Bellucci, I like her. I have nothing against her, but like, was any of that necessary at all? And I thought she had a cool look, and I liked when she came out, the way she stapled herself together and everything. That was cool. But like, she looked very similar to like the Corpse Bride and like Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. So like a lot of just kind of Tim Burton stuff I've seen before in some ways. And I like Justin Theroux, but I thought the Rory character was maybe just a bit too obvious. Like I immediately was like, oh, okay, well, this guy, you know, obviously when he's like, oh, when you hurt, I hurt too. I'm like, oh, this guy sucks. He's the worst. And I guess I maybe wish they would have just underplayed that a little bit. Maybe let you think that he was a nice guy for a little bit. And Jeremy's parents being dead, I knew that immediately. As soon as he was like, oh, my parents don't really notice. I'm like, oh, his parents are dead. Okay, cool. I didn't catch him being the serial killer right away, but the parents being dead, I immediately caught that. And then that led me to a lot of questions, really, like, why can Astrid see Jeremy? Because can she see ghosts too? I didn't think she could before. So can she now? Because her grandpa died, I guess. I don't know. And I went into the lore a little bit about this, and it's explained why Lydia could see them in the first place. And it was because she wasn't afraid of dying, and because she's weird and unusual, and also her mother had died. So this is kind of like Astrid, whose father had died, but quite a while ago, I think. So I guess maybe getting some closure by talking to her mom about her dad, or then the fact that her grandpa died as well, sort of maybe gave her the ability to see ghosts. No. There's a lot of this kind of stuff though, where it's like, okay, so what's going on and how does the underworld like job system work? Like, why does Beetlejuice have this job? It seems like maybe again, it's people who committed suicide or people whose death was ruled a suicide, even though they were actually murdered, are doing this like investigating type job. And then why is the Willem Dafoe's character? Why is he a cop in this? Like, and again, I try not to let this bother me too much because it's a fun time and it's a good movie, but like there's definitely some questions where I'm like, I don't understand. Also, I think MacArthur Park, I don't get that song. I don't like that song. It was, I don't know, it was something before my time, I guess, because I know they've referenced it on like Seinfeld and The Simpsons and stuff. So I think for people who are 15, 20 years older than me, that's some sort of a cultural touchstone that I just totally missed. So I don't get the song at first. I'm like, so what the joke is that it's like a very maudlin song about a cake getting destroyed, but okay, no, it's actually an allegory for a relationship. Either way, not a fan. I think musically it was interesting, but yeah, I don't get that song. I don't get the appeal of that song, and it went on way too long, and so I didn't like it. And it's nowhere near as good as the Day Up, song from the original. And I feel like if they wanted to do something similar, there's other songs like Jump in the Line, which I think they did use in the original, but there's other Harry Belafonte songs they could have used. They could have used, Barry Manilow, Cab Calloway. There's a ton of good songs. I mean, yeah, imagine if they did Minnie the Moocher or something like that. That would be great. Instead, we got MacArthur Park, which is fine, but not nearly as good as Deo. And I was bummed we didn't get Deo. I figured for sure there would be like a scene, maybe a mid-credit scene or something where Beetlejuice is back in the, neither world or whatever. He's like, all right, boys, only one thing can cheer me up now. And then like they do it or something. Like I expected that for sure and didn't happen. So I was surprised to learn though that MacArthur Park was first recorded by Richard Harris, who was the guy who played Dumbledore in the first couple Harry Potter movies until he passed away. So that's interesting to me. But yeah, and like I said, I liked all the practical effects, but there were a few scenes with digital effect with VFX, CGI, and I didn't like them mostly just because they sort of stood out to me, and I wish. I wish they weren't there, I guess. I also I noticed they changed Astrid's line from the trailer. In the trailer, when the people at her school play a prank on her, she says something about like, oh, when you're banging your physical personal trainers or whatever. And they changed it to a different line, which actually I think the other line is maybe better because I remember thinking when I saw the trailer, like, that's not a big insult exactly. So, but just it was weird that they changed it to me. I don't know. And like I said, a lot of stuff I didn't really understand the rules or like Beetlejuice's powers, like why he has these powers and why other people don't, you know what I mean? And I did notice, at least maybe I'm wrong, but I did notice a couple of times it looks like his hands were just normal looking hands and didn't have like the white, with the green splotches like they should have, which maybe I'm mistaken, but it seemed like there was a couple of times where it was like just his face was white and not the rest. And I'm like, what's going on too? What's going on here? I think there's an argument to be made. It's maybe a little too similar to the first in some ways. It kind of repeats some of the same story beats. It ends with like, him trying to marry Lydia and all that stuff. And I do feel like the ending felt a little rushed because again, it ends with like the snake worm eating it. So it's this like Deus Machina sandworm kind of thing, which I guess sort of works because it's a callback to the first movie, but also like I don't know. I guess it just seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere. It seemed like there's a lot of stories going on, and they kind of tied them all together. But I also feel like, maybe they didn't need to have so many stories going. So yeah, other than that, movie is directed by Tim Burton. He did the first Batman and Batman Returns, Beetlejuice, Dumbo, the Wednesday TV show. He directed a bunch of episodes of that. It was written by Alfred Gough and Miles Millar. They got the screenplay credit, and then the story by credit is the two of them with Seth Grahame-Smith. Alfred Gough and Miles Millar worked together a lot. They did Lethal Weapon 4, Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights, I believe, as well. Spider-Man 2, and they also did the TV show Smallville and Wednesday. And Seth Grahame-Smith, he hit it big with his books, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. He also, I believe, wrote the screenplay for Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, screenplay for the Tim Burton remake of Dark Shadows, the movie with Johnny Depp a few years ago, and Lego Batman. So yeah, budget on this one's $100 million, and so far it's made 145 million, 110 million of that was domestic. So it's not going to have any problem making back its budget. I did read an estimated budget of 150 somewhere, but the official budget they're reporting is 100. Either way, I'm sure the movie's going to make money and it's going to be doing fine. I did notice some other Rotten Tomatoes scores on this one as well. People are liking it. Critics are at 76% and the audience is at 82%. So yeah, audience is liking it a little bit more, but in general, people seem to be enjoying it. I did notice the other stops at the station because I was curious to see what they were. So we had, of course, the Great Beyond, which is where they go. There's also the Pearly Gates, which I assume is heaven. Elysium Fields or Elysium. That is a Greek mythology, sort of where the heroes would go. And then the Fires of Damnation, which I assume is hell. I did notice it was interesting to see that Brad Pitt produced this, just because I noticed his name popped up in the credits when, at the opening credits, and I'm like, oh, Brad Pitt. But yeah, Plan B Entertainment was the production company, so there you go. They originally offered the role of Wolf Jackson to Christopher Walken, but he turned it down, and they gave it to Willem Dafoe. I think either would have worked, but I like Willem Dafoe, so no problems there. Yeah, like I said, I guess the whole Beetlejuice thing is if your death was caused by a suicide, then you work as a civil servant in the afterlife. Okay. I don't know. And then Danny DeVito's character is a janitor, and it seems like he is trying to commit suicide. So then I guess if you do commit suicide, you're a janitor, but if people thought you committed suicide, but you actually got murdered, then you're a civil servant. I don't know. I don't think they even really have the rules all figured out. And of course, one thing I might have mentioned, I might have forgotten, but I don't know how much I really liked hearing Beetlejuice's backstory. I mean, it was kind of interesting, and he had mentioned in the first one he lived through the plague. He also said he went to Juilliard and Harvard and all that. So clearly in this one that we see, he did live through the plague in the 1300s. So, well, he didn't attend to his Juilliard or Harvard, which is fine. He can lie. He's a trickster demon. It's okay. But I don't know. I almost feel like in a way not having the confirmation of his backstory makes him more interesting. And like, I don't know, the whole thing with the wife, I feel like we could have just cut all that out, I guess. So even though, like I said, it looks like this movie is ready to make some money, and I'm sure it'll sell some merchandise as well. When asked about a third movie, Tim Burton said, let's do the math. It took 34 years to do this, so I'll be over 100. But I guess it's possible with the advent of science these days, but I don't think so. So of course he's being a little tongue in cheek there, and I'm sure with enough money he would come back to make it. But it seems like yeah, I don't know, we'll see. But as far as score on this one, I really liked it. I think in general, the movie suffered in some ways. It was a little boring, especially toward the beginning, and some issues that I've pointed out. And it definitely seemed like they were rehashing a lot, and there's a little bit too much going on. But overall, I liked it. I'd probably give it a 7, but I love Baby Beetlejuice so much that I'm going to give it an 8, just for Baby Beetlejuice. Baby Beetlejuice is awesome. I want a Baby Beetlejuice. So that's my score, 8 out of 10. I really liked it. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.